When Prince Harry sat down on Graham Norton's famous red sofa, no one expected the royal charm to unravel into a public meltdown. But what began as light banter turned into one of the most jaw-dropping confrontations in television history, and it ended with Harry storming off the set. So, what pushed the prince over the edge? Before we unpack every second of this wild moment, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because trust me, you don't want to miss what happened next. A prince, a host. One moment that changed everything. When Prince Harry walked onto the set of the Graham Norton show, the crowd erupted in applause. The lights were bright, the red sofa was polished, and everything felt like a classic night on one of Britain's most beloved talk shows. People expected the usual charm, some laughs, and maybe a quick story about life in California. But what they got was something no one could have predicted. What started as light conversation turned into a public clash that left the entire audience stunned. The Graham Norton show has always been known for its playful energy. Guests come, share a few jokes, and leave feeling like they just had drinks with an old friend. Graham himself is sharp, witty, and knows exactly how to keep a conversation moving. That night was no different, at least at first. The set was buzzing. There had been a fun cooking segment, a few laughs with another guest, and everyone seemed in good spirits. Then came Harry. He stepped out with his usual smile, confident and composed. He looked like the same man we have seen in interviews, documentaries, and magazine covers. Trained, controlled, polished. But there was something in the air that night. Maybe it was Graham's energy. Maybe it was the pressure of public life catching up. Either way, what happened next was anything but expected. This was not the same Prince Harry who usually handles tough questions with ease. This was a man who, for once, seemed truly shaken. Something cracked, and once it did, there was no putting the pieces back together. If you enjoy raw, unfiltered moments like this, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, and tell us in the comments below, was Harry justified, or did he cross the line? What really pushed him to the edge? You are going to want to hear every word of what happened next. The show opened like any other. Graham was in his element, cracking jokes, tossing around his usual cheeky comments, and keeping the audience laughing. The red chair had already done a few spins. A celebrity chef had whipped up something that had everyone clapping. A famous actress had shared a funny behind-the-scenes story. Everything was flowing, easy, and light. Then, the energy shifted. Prince Harry stepped onto the set, and the room lit up with applause. People stood. Some cheered, louder than expected. He walked in with confidence, flashing that same familiar smile we have all seen on magazine covers and televised interviews. He looked calm, polished, and completely in control. Harry settled into the red sofa with the ease of someone used to the spotlight. He crossed one leg over the other, rested his hands in his lap, and gave Graham a nod. It was clear he had done this many times before. There was no sign of nerves, no tension, just a royal playing the part he knew well. Graham greeted him warmly. "Your Royal Highness, lovely to have you here. How are you finding life these days?" It was a simple question, a soft opener, the kind that talk shows usually begin with to set the tone. Harry responded smoothly. He talked about his ongoing charity work. He mentioned his focus on mental health, his family life, and how California had become home. His words were measured, but relaxed, his voice steady. The audience nodded along. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Graham smiled, listening carefully. But those who know Graham Norton know he rarely stays in safe territory for long. He has a way of asking questions that feel lighthearted on the surface but slowly peel back layers, and every now and then, as Harry spoke, Graham would glance at him with that glint in his eye, that slight tilt of the head, a playful grin that suggested he had something else in mind. The mood was still light, but if you paid attention, you could feel it shifting. It was like watching a sky that looks sunny but has just a hint of dark clouds forming on the edge. So if you have not already, hit that subscribe button now, because what is coming next gets seriously intense, and you will not want to miss a single second of it. After a few more pleasantries, Graham made a gentle shift. His tone stayed light, but his question carried a little more weight. So he said, leaning forward just slightly, "I have to ask. This whole business about stepping back from royal duties, that must have made for some interesting family dinners, right?" It was the kind of question only Graham could ask with a smile. The audience chuckled. It sounded playful, almost harmless, but there was something under the surface, a nudge toward the truth everyone wanted to hear. Harry kept his expression calm. He nodded, then gave an answer that sounded like it had been practiced a dozen times. "It was a decision we made as a family. We are all moving forward in our own ways." He spoke evenly, his words smooth, careful, a perfect example of royal media training. Graham nodded along, pretending to accept the answer, but the twinkle in his eye never left. He was not done. Of course, he said, letting the silence hang for just a moment. Then he added with a grin, "But you do not just wake up one morning and decide to relocate to California. Someone must have had something to say about that." This time, the audience really laughed. Some leaned forward, eyes wide, waiting to see how Harry would handle it. Harry laughed too, but it sounded different, tighter, less natural. His smile did not quite reach his eyes. His body shifted slightly, posture a little more upright. His shoulders no longer relaxed. The change was subtle, but it was there. God, you know. Graham, he said, voice steady but sharper now. Family discussions are meant to stay within the family. I think most people can understand that. The tension in the room grew. People could feel it. The easy flow from earlier had hit a bump. The conversation had moved from friendly to something more personal, more real. And Graham, who has spent years mastering this exact moment, knew it. He could see the flicker of discomfort behind Harry's calm exterior. The game had changed, and everyone could feel it. The question was, how far would it go? Harry's reply was short, but the message behind it was clear. He looked straight at Graham and said, family discussions are meant to stay within the family. His tone was cool, even polite, but it carried a quiet warning. Graham nodded, still smiling. He leaned back slightly in his chair, keeping the moment.com, but then he added, absolutely. Family privacy is important. Though I have to say, for a family that values privacy, you all do seem to end up in the papers quite a lot. The audience laughed again, but it was not the same kind of laugh from earlier. This one had some nerves behind it. A few people glanced around. Everyone knew the air had shifted. Harry's jaw tensed, and his fingers curled just slightly on his lap. He let out a breath, then replied, the media has a way of twisting things, turning personal matters into public entertainment. His voice was still even, but there was an edge now, a tension building under the surface. Graham tilted his head, watching carefully. Oh, absolutely, he said. But when you go on international television to talk about those personal matters, are you not inviting that attention? That was the moment everything started to change. The casual tone was gone. The smiles were thinner. The audience fell quiet, feeling something real was happening. Harry looked directly at Graham. Now, there is a difference between sharing your truth and having others profit from your pain, he said. His voice was louder, firmer. Some of us have lived under constant media pressure our whole lives. Sometimes, you have to speak up. Graham kept his posture relaxed, but there was a shift in his eyes. He was not backing down. I understand that, he replied. But at the same time, is it not fair to ask why someone who wants privacy keeps choosing public platforms to talk about private matters, documentaries, interviews, books? It feels like you want to speak freely without being questioned. Harry's smile had vanished completely. His shoulders were squared. His tone had lost its softness. What I want is to control my story. After years of having it twisted by others, the audience was locked in. Phones lowered, eyes wide. What had started as a light evening chat was now turning into a clash of values, and the cracks were starting to show. The room was already tense, but then Graham brought it to another level. He leaned in slightly and said, your mother faced terrible media pressure, that is true, but she did not go on talk shows or Netflix to share every family detail. Do you not think there is a difference between her situation and yours? The moment he said it, the studio changed. No more laughter, no more shifting in seats. It was dead quiet. Harry's eyes narrowed. He sat up straighter and spoke slowly, his voice tight. You have no idea what it is like to lose your mother because of media harassment. You did not live through that. You did not walk behind her coffin, with the world watching, so do not act like you understand. Graham nodded gently, showing a bit of softness, but he did not step back. You are right, I did not live through it, and I would never pretend to know that kind of pain. But I do know the world you live in now is not the same as it was then, and the way you use the media today is not the same either. Harry's voice cracked just a little as he said, the pain is the same, the pressure is the same. Every time my wife is chased by photographers, every time a tabloid spins lies about my family, it brings it all back. My mother died because no one stepped in. I will not let that happen again. The audience could feel how real it was now. This was not just a disagreement. This was Harry laying his heart out. And Graham, to his credit, kept his voice calm and steady. I believe you when you say you are trying to protect your family, he said, but I also believe there is a difference between protecting your family and using your story to stay in the spotlight. That is the line people struggle with. That is the part that feels confusing. Harry shook his head, clearly frustrated. So I am supposed to just stay silent. Let the lies spread. Let my family suffer while people like you judge from the sidelines. No, Graham replied, his tone more serious now. I am saying you can speak your truth, but you have to be ready for people to ask questions when you do. That is how public platforms work. You cannot demand a microphone and expect no one to talk back. Harry looked like he had been hit. The mention of his mother had shaken him, and Graham's calm challenge had landed harder than anything else so far. This was no longer a talk show. It was a raw, public reckoning. A prince defending his pain, a host defending his questions, and an audience sitting in complete silence, witnessing a conversation that felt bigger than just two men on a sofa. The studio was silent, but the air felt heavy. Harry leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. You think this is all fun for you? You sit there in your nice suit, smiling, cracking jokes, while people like me have our lives ripped apart. You profit from that. You feed on it. Graham stayed calm, but his tone turned firm. You came on this show, Harry. You accepted the audience, the stage, the camera. And now you want to accuse me of exploitation. You cannot have it both ways. Harry's jaw clenched. I came here thinking this would be a fair conversation. I thought maybe you would show some respect. But clearly, you are just like the rest of them. Graham's reply came fast. Respect goes both ways. You talk about your truth, but every time someone challenges you, you call it disrespect. That is not how conversations work. Harry stood up. His voice rose with every word. This is not a conversation. This is a trap. You brought me here just to tear me down on live television. The audience stirred. Some people gasped. Others shifted in their seats. It was no longer just an awkward moment. It was something bigger. Graham kept his eyes on Harry. No one forced you to be here. You wanted the spotlight. You wanted the story out on your terms. But the moment someone asks a hard question, you demand silence. You do not get to twist this, Harry snapped. I have lived through pain you will never understand. I watched the media destroy my mother. I watched it nearly destroy my wife. And now, you want to sit there and act like I owe you an explanation. Graham's voice dropped. Calm, measured. This is what happens when privilege meets reality. When someone who has always controlled the narrative finally gets pushed. Harry's face turned red. He pointed at Graham. Get him out. Now I want him removed from this building. I will not be disrespected like this. Not by you. Not by anyone. Security at the edge of the set looked unsure. The producers behind the camera froze. No one knew what to do. Graham did not move. He looked right at the audience and said, You are watching it happen. This is not an act. This is what happens when someone who has never been told no finally hears it. The audience reacted. Some people clapped. Others stayed quiet, unsure what they were even witnessing. Harry was shaking now, hands clenched, voice tight with rage. You think you are so clever. You think this makes you brave. But you are just another parasite hiding behind a camera. Graham stayed seated, calm as ever. And you are just another man who cannot stand being questioned. Harry turned to leave. You will regret this. You have not heard the last of it. Graham leaned back, voice calm, maybe not. But everyone watching now knows exactly what this was. The camera captured everything. The storm, the silence, the raw, unfiltered reality of two worlds crashing into each other. And for a moment, everyone forgot they were watching a talk show. It felt like history. The air in the studio had turned thick. You could almost feel everyone holding their breath. Prince Harry stood there, furious, his eyes locked on Graham. Security shifted nervously near the edge of the stage, waiting for a signal, but no one quite knew what to do. This was not in the script. This was not a rehearsed joke or a harmless segment. This was something else entirely. Graham stayed seated, calm as ever. The lights above buzzed softly, and the audience sat frozen in their seats. Then Graham turned slightly toward the cameras, and with a quiet but steady voice, he said, You just saw the real Harry. The room stirred. A few people gasped. Some exchanged glances. Others looked away, unsure what they were even witnessing. Harry took a deep breath, then pointed toward the cameras and said, You have not heard the last of this. His voice was sharp, not yelling, but loud enough that it echoed across the set. He walked off stage, footsteps heavy, and disappeared. Behind the curtain, just like that, the royal exit had turned into a storm. One no one had predicted. The audience still sat in a stunned kind of silence. Some clapped, unsure if they were supporting Graham or just reacting to the drama. Others stayed completely still. Phones were already out. Clips were being recorded. Social media would explode within minutes. Graham looked back toward the crowd, still composed, and said, This is what happens when truth meets expectation. When someone lives a life trying to control the story, but the moment the story pushes back, it all falls apart. He leaned forward slightly, voice even more quiet now. The world wants honesty, not perfection. And sometimes the truth is not polite. Sometimes it walks off the stage. A few people applauded. Others looked like they had seen something they were not supposed to, and maybe they had. This was not a typical talk show moment. This was raw, unfiltered, real. That night, the headlines would write themselves. But in that room, for those few minutes, no one was thinking about headlines. They were just watching two worlds crash. And for once, nothing was edited. It all ended with that one line. Graham looked straight into the camera and said, You just saw the real Harry. Then, without another word, the prince stormed off stage. It was not a performance anymore, it was real. The tension, the emotion, the complete breakdown of control. So now the question is yours. Was Harry pushed too far? Or was this the moment where royal double standards finally caught up to him? Was Graham being unfair? Or did he just say what millions were already thinking? Let me know what you believe in the comments. Was this a setup, or was this Harry revealing who he really is under pressure? And if you are into bold showdowns, raw emotion, and moments where the mask finally drops, make sure you subscribe because more intense confrontations, honest conversations, and unforgettable moments are on the way.